Hey, the Guoba back again for a video on builds, but not for the Herta. No, we've already done that. This video will be talking about her teammates' builds. Today I'll be talking about her Erudition sub DPS again, why they're used, and what relics and speed and stuff you can go on them. Like and sub if this helps, and let's go. First, we gotta differentiate two build types. You can go for offensive power or battery power on your sub DPS. An offensive based build on your Serval would be something like 4 Scholar with 2 Izimo and a DPS light cone. Here, your Serval will be outputting damage on top of providing energy and interpretation stacks for your brand new Emanator. But a battery build would instead opt for energy and action count above all. So we'd go Eagle Set or Speed 2 pieces, Von Whack, Energy Rope, and energy-based light cones. Here, your Serval deals barely any damage, but acts a lot more often throughout a fight. What's also awesome about these builds is that since we aren't focusing damage, we can ignore trace leveling if it doesn't contribute to energy or action count. Now, some sub DPS can dish out crazy damage, and Jade for example doesn't even gain that much by going fast. So it'll depend on both your unit strength as well as how they work. But basically, you can either prioritize team-wide damage or instead focus all on the Herta's damage by giving her as much energy as possible. She does output an insane amount of damage, so it can replace the negligible damage of a weaker sub DPS. So let's see the unit. I excluded Jingyuan, Qingshui, and Rappa from my main guide, and I'll be doing so again because I just don't think they work well. Qingshui consumes way too much SP and also doesn't attack nearly as often as other 4-stars. Jingyuan likewise barely attacks. The only reason he does now is if using Sunday, but we are not using Sunday to battery Jingyuan to battery the Herta. And finally, Rappa can attack a bunch with her S1, but she wants Fugue and Rome, and at that point you're running a 0 sustain Rappa team and then just adding the Herta to it. So anyway, let's begin with Serval. Serval is an excellent and free friend for the Herta. Do not FOMO over Jade, especially if you don't want her. Her niche for stack generation is her low ultimate cost combined with various means of obtaining loads of energy. At an energy cost of 100, you shouldn't really be struggling with spamming out ults on her every 2 turns or so when considering a DPS build, but we do have a 1-turn ultimate rotation she can use. Considering a 5% energy planar, an energy rope, and pass key versus 5 enemies, we have the following ultimate rotation. Ult gives 5 energy, heal gives 30, pass key gives 12, but she also gets 20 energy from her E2 with her ult, and then she gets another 20 from her E2 with her skill. Multiplying all this by our regen rate and we get over 100 energy, therefore she can ult again. Versus 4 enemies you are barely 2 energy off, and so with some external energy like shared feeling Huohuo or just getting hit, you can pull it off there too. Even versus 3 enemies with 10 extra energy from external means, you'll still get that ult up without having to act again. Now because she is using a 3-star cone and wants energy regen, she lacks a lot of damage, so we don't even care for crit here. So for this ult spam playstyle, you would ideally use 4 Eagle. 4 Eagle means every single ult is an action advance for Serval, and so every 4 ults you pretty much get a free turn. If not, 2 Sakados, 2 Hacker is just fine as well. Eagle is just min-maxing even more actions. You'd then go 2 Von Whack for that low cycle gaming, but if not, you can go Lushaka and boost Herta's damage instead. You really want the energy. For main stats, you'd go Effect Hit Rate Chest, Speed Boots, HP Orb, and Energy Rope. Your effect hit rate should be from 43 to 67%, I'd just guarantee your shocks if I were you. And speed can be as high as you can get, but there are breakpoints as always. For just running Sakados Hackspace, aim for 160 speed as a final goal. If you're running Eagle and want some low cycle breakpoints, here they are on the screen for you. Von Whack on top will change things as well. If you want to go for a damagey Serval, it's pretty simple, just offensive relics and planars and light cones with some DPS stack goals that any other character would want to get. I'd still go for 134 speed on her on a damage build as her actions do count a lot for stacking. Mini Herta up next, who doesn't love more Hertas? Also an excellent and free sub DPS, just with different use cases. Her stacking energy for her true form comes from spamming follow-ups. Every time an enemy drops under 50% HP, there she goes. And if you manage to stagger these successfully, you have an unparalleled amount of AoE hits. Though since she isn't ult spamming like Serval, you can now go for an offensive build instead. And since her follow-ups are enabled from other units just like Jade is, even more so. Some people run Eagle in pure fiction since she will get tons of follow-ups for lots of energy, but I don't find it necessary. So her damage build will be 4 Duke with 2 Duran or Izimo. You want crit chest, attack boots, damage orb, and attack rope. Speed boots and 134 speed are not necessary because basically all of her damage and stacking is off turn. Stat goals are the usual good amounts, but don't worry too much since she is just the sub DPS. And for Lycones, you can use any decent options you have that aren't already occupied. I would recommend sticking to the DPS build, but you can run her higher speed if you need her to act more often for hit count based enemies. Brewery, for example, ran a high speed Herta for the new 3.0 boss, and paired this with the Serval 4-star Lycone for a first turn ultimate. This is geared to 0 cycle though. Himeko time! Her stacking is based on breaking enemies, which is very possible with Herta's big nukes, versus ice weakness, which she should usually be against. My problem with Himeko though is her attack frequency is lower than Mini Herta and Serval, unless you start considering a Fugue on top and or a high breaking frequency unit with her. If the content isn't Fire Weak on top of Ice Weak, she also cannot contribute to her own stacking, unless of course again, Fugue. I'd go your usual damage build since she isn't ult spamming and takes quite a bit to get there if her talents aren't popping. For Duke again, 2 Duran or Izimo and Crit Jest, Speed Boots, Damage Orb and Attack Rope. If you have her E1 and expect frequent enough follow-ups, you can go Attack Boots instead with some speed in subsets. I'd go for 134 speed in combat and great defensive stats otherwise. Jade is a limited sub DPS option and is made to spam out AoE attacks, and she does this by having her Deck Collector spam out AoE attacks. So she is pretty well made as an enabler for the Herta's kit. You can Deck Collect the Herta herself and let her hit some nice speed breakpoints without speed boots, or you can Deck Collect a unit like Linksha that can attack at a much higher frequency. Both work well, but the Linksha method requires a lot more SP usage, and of course requires a whole extra unit. She doesn't have any extra means of getting energy outside of just hitting more often with more follow-ups. She also has some pretty chunky multipliers and self-buffs, so for Jade, we definitely want to go for a damage build. As of 3.0, she should have the strongest damage output out of all possible sub-DPS options for the Herta. It's going to get old now, but again, 4 Duke is your best bet, and again, 2 Duran or 2 Izimo. She can also use the brand new Poet set, but she needs to dodge speed substats everywhere, so I'd just stick to 4 Duke if I were you. She'll be going Attack Boots since she doesn't need the speed and is advanced on her first turn to apply that Deck Collector buff. Remember though that when she first takes action is when her speed buff is first applied, and that means action value has already passed by the time she applies it. This means we cannot boost a 104 Herta to 134 in the first cycle and still hit those 134 breakpoints. This is why I say you can go 113 Herta if you want her to act twice in the first cycle on wave 1. Finally, we have Argenti. Argenti is a limited unit all the way back from 1.5 who is gaining relevance again thanks to the Herta. He also got more relevance from fun combos like with Fugue in Pure Fiction. I'm so happy for him. Anyway, he's like Serval where his Herta batterying is all about ult spamming. Except Argenti's is much more reliable and he has a slightly lower energy cost for his tier 1 ultimate. When considering no means of extra energy, we get 30 energy from a skill, 5 from his ult, then 30 from hitting 5 enemies twice. You are at 65 out of 90 for the next ultimate. But if we consider passkey, that is 77 energy, and if we multiply this by an energy rope, we hit over 90. So one-turn ults are very durable. He can also overcap on energy, meaning extra energy is not wasted, unlike Serval, and he can also get energy from enemies spawning in, 2 per enemy. With this, you want to go 4 Eagle again, or 2 Hacker, 2 Sakados if not. 2 Von Whack for your planers, or 2 Lushaka. Just copy the Serval build, kind of. But for main stats, he doesn't need the effect hit rate and can go HP, speed, HP, energy for even more tankiness. And in stat goals, you'll just want him super speedy like Serval. If using Eagle and or Von Whack, then he shares the same breakpoints as neither of them have any extra self-action advance or speed buffs. Now in my The Herta guide, I talked about a different build. You'll basically always be going this passkey setup with Eagle or 2 speed combos, but since I found this Pure Fiction Thief Fugue build so fun, I chose to show it off in the video. If you have Fugue, you can go for this. No need to pull her though, especially just for a fun combo. But basically, since she doubles the possible breaks, she doubles the possible energy procs from Thief set, and therefore you can generate an extra 30 energy per 5 enemies if you break both bars. You still go for a 2-piece energy planar and energy rope, but you'll have infinite ultimates with this setup. Himeko can also run this setup, as her follow-ups can repeatedly break bars and keep on chaining over and over again. If you have any other alternative builds I might have missed, let me know, but otherwise I hope this helped someone out. Like and sub if it did, and thanks for watching. Thanks to my amazing YouTube members, and have a good day.